fighting the war on drugs, the president's plan to take back the streets.
Who's responsible? Let me tell you straight out. Everyone who uses drugs, everyone who sells drugs, and everyone who looks the other way.
From the front lines to the front offices, can the battle be won, or is the war on drugs just a war of words? The president declares war. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ernie Anastas.
And I'm Michelle Marsh. For the first time since he took office, George Bush took to the airwaves from the Oval Office, taking aim on public enemy number one, drugs. The plan spends $7.9 billion to fight an addiction that's gripping this country. The targets, street dealers, casual drug users, and the cocaine cartels. We have coverage of the Bush plan from the nation's capital to the streets of our city. And we begin with Channel 2's Brian Williams in Washington, D.C. Brian?
Michelle, Ernie, I'd love to be able to come on the air tonight and tell you how much money the New York area will get. We don't know that yet. Where that money will come from in the federal budget, we don't know that yet either. The important part, though, according to many of those we spoke to in Washington tonight, is that it started. The process is underway. The president fired that first shot tonight. Some are even saying the hard part is over, although there will be fighting up here on Capitol Hill over the money. It is now a national priority. George Bush declared war tonight. He declared a different sort of war.
Our most serious problem today is cocaine, and in particular, crack. Who's responsible? Let me tell you straight out. Everyone who uses drugs, everyone who sells drugs, and everyone who looks the other way.
The president used a visual aid tonight, holding up a bag of crack cocaine seized in the park across the street from the White House.
It's as innocent looking as candy, but it's turning our cities into battle zones, and it's murdering our children. Let there be no mistake. This stuff is poison.
The president's point is, this is what this drug war is all about, and this is what he's doing about it. It is an $8 billion drug plan. On the streets, local law enforcement will get more than double what they've been getting, $350 million to fight the drug war here at home. The Bush administration wants tougher laws, stiffer fines, a crackdown on the casual user. The White House says that will have to mean more arrests. More arrests mean more jail cells. There's $1.2 billion in the plan for that. On drug treatment, spending goes up by half to just under $1 billion, but that doesn't mean treatment on demand, something many say has to happen to stem the tide of users. Foreign aid, the big three cocaine producers, Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru, will get 3 times the money they're getting now to fight their own drug battles, more if they're successful. Finally, for classroom anti-drug education, more money, but not much more. New York's chief law enforcement officer, Attorney General Robert Abrams, met with the president today. Tonight, we watched the president's speech with him.
But the problem is so big that if we're really going to mount the war that's necessary to win the struggle, we're going to need the money to back it up. And so far, that's one of the weaknesses in the plan.
Good opening move by Bush, need more money. Those sentiments echoed tonight by Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman.
The question is, what are we going to do now? I mean, if we continue the war metaphor, he's established a beachhead tonight. The question is whether he and we are going to follow up with enough resources to really fight the war.
Since we have been on the air tonight, there have been 2 drug arrests in the city of New York. That's what the stats show would happen in this few minutes period. 44,000 arrests last year. That is what George Bush is up against with this declaration of war tonight, or so he calls it. How will this plan fly on the streets of New York? From Washington, let's go live to Brooklyn. Channel 2 News correspondent Mike Taibbi.
Yeah, Brian, I'm in the 83rd Precinct, Bushwick in Brooklyn. We're here for a couple of reasons. It was in this precinct back on August 8th when anti-drug fighter Maria Hernandez was shot, apparently by drug dealers. She and her husband, Carlos, had allegedly been described by their neighbors as being drug fighters. We're here, too, because the TNT made 3,200 drug arrests in one 90-day period, and it seems to have made no difference. We keep coming back and have been for the last 3.5 weeks and talked to drug dealers, walked into crack dens, shooting galleries, talked to plain people all over the streets, and they say that the basic systems that we have in place just won't do the trick. Crack is still sold and smoked openly on street corners and in crack dens. For every crack den that's shut down, another opens next door or across the street. Crack's addicts are no less desperate or resourceful than ever.
I believe if the devil came up and had some rocks and said, this is your, give me your soul and I'll give you this, they would give it to them.
So you don't worry about them when they just drive by, though, too much, huh?
Yeah, of course.
Well, what are you doing it right out in the open for, then?
Huh? Just dying sick of it.
And heroin? In Bushwick, in the 9 square blocks, heroin is still the devil king. What we saw will shock you, and it should. Addicts by the dozen, buying drugs, cooking drugs, shooting up in broad daylight as the police cruisers drift by. Sharing needles, fishing for an old spike from a whole tray of them. And then the women among this group going out to prostitute themselves. Day and night, the commerce in death is numbing. Day and night, the shooting galleries and stash houses we located conducted business almost without interruption, even as a police cruiser stops a motorist for a traffic violation a few feet away. The children are in the middle of all of this, the streets where the hooker addicts ply their deadly trade. The children go to the drug dens with their own drug-addicted parents. The drug users and drug fighters agree on one point.
This is real life, okay? This is not the movies. This is not a book. This is not TV.
It's just a phase that every neighborhood goes through.
Yeah, but why should it have to be like that? You got a little girl over here, this little
Nobody said it should have to be like that, but we living in the real world, and this is what's real.
We told the head of the tactical narcotics team in Brooklyn what we'd seen and videotaped. He was neither shocked nor optimistic.
And we'll still be able to stick our cameras out almost any window and see what we've been seeing?
Unfortunately, yes. It is absolutely frustrating, but I am not going to concede to those mutts that they are winning.
As I've said before, we'll run a series of reports over the next couple of weeks about what we've learned in Bushwick over the last 3.5 weeks. As for the Bush proposal tonight, one cop told me, I like everything I heard, but I've heard a lot before, so we'll wait and see. This is Mike Taibbi reporting live in Bushwick. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you, Mike. It is quite a story, and the toll that the drug epidemic is taking on our nation can be measured in lives lost. But it also affects the quality of life for the innocent victims, the people who live in communities where drugs have taken over.
Many of the victims of drugs are not in the habit